Let's do a little quick hit on this because there's a lot of talk going on right now on social media about this. That the Professional Hockey Writers Association has revealed their ballots, and now we always know that certain guys get weird votes, and now you can go to the Professional Hockey Writers website and find out who. But there are some interesting things here, like for the Hart. Kucherov got 164 votes for the Hart. So when people talk about who might or might not have gotten ripped off, that is as close to unanimous as you're going to get. Crosby got 3 votes, McDavid got 1, Gaudreau got 2, and McKinnon got 1. Gaudreau would have got 2 because Calgary finished first in the West, and Gaudreau was seen as the best player on the best team in the West. Crosby gets 3. He's Crosby. McKinnon doesn't really surprise me a whole lot. You could argue Rantanen was an MVP level player for them too, but McKinnon's really the driving force on that team. The Selkie Award was as close as any of them were. O'Reilly with 48 first place votes, Stone with 42, Bergeron 31, Crosby had 34. So Crosby actually had more first place votes for the Selkie than did Patrice Bergeron. Barkov had 9, Couturier had 2, Dano had 1 from Montreal. Braden Point and Anthony Cirelli each had 1 from Tampa. And Nick Bonino of Nashville. And I do wonder about a writer that would pick Nick Bonino as the best defensive forward in the National Hockey League. You could make an argument for whether or not he might be the best defensive forward in Nashville. But I couldn't make the argument that he's a better defensive forward than anybody else on the board. Maybe rookie Cirelli. Maybe. Norris Trophy was as close to unanimous as you're going to get on this one too. Giordano with 165 votes. First place. Burns had 2. Hedman had 1. John Carlson had 3. There were 4 fourth place votes for Erik Karlsson. He is getting further away from the Norris, not closer to it. We'll see if he gets back into form next year. The Lady Byng was pretty close to unanimous-ish too for that award. And I didn't put down everybody that got a first place vote because I would have run out of board space quickly. Barkov got 128 first place votes. So that's really what you need to know there. Out of 171 writers, 128 said Barkov was the Lady Byng. O'Reilly with 12, Monahan with 3, Morgan Riley had 2, and Connor McDavid had 7. So I rank these by the order of how many points they had overall, but you'll notice McDavid with 7 votes. He just didn't get as many second, third, fourth place votes as guys above him. The Calder was not close either. It really wasn't. And at the start of the playoffs, it was pretty well understood that Pettersson was Rookie of the Year. What happened in the playoffs led a lot of people to say, hey, it's got to be Binnington's. But Binnington only got 18 first place votes as opposed to 151 for Elias Pettersson. Rasmus Dahlin got 1 and Miro Heiskanen got 1 as well. But the Conn Smythe is interesting too. This was voted on halfway through the third period of Game 7. So they were submitted at that point, even though we were told that the voting was done in between the second and third period. So it's halfway through the third. There were no first place votes for Tuukka Rask, though he finished third in Conn Smythe voting. There were 13 first place votes for O'Reilly, and Binnington had 5. So Ryan O'Reilly wins it, 13, and of course he was second in Lady Byng voting, and he ends up winning the Selkie Trophy. And I know the advanced stats people have been all over this, but the writers don't really usually go by the whole advanced stats argument. So when you get into the whole Corsi, Fenwick, and whatever else you may be using, a lot of the writers I don't think look at that a whole lot. Draisaitl is where the guffaws begin, and it reminds me of Alex Ovechkin, who switched wings and ended up being that season ended up being on the All-Star teams for both left and right wing, because there were writers who forgot he switched wings. Last summer, I had a list of who I thought were the best centers in the league. I had Claude Giroux on the list, despite the fact that he spent most of the season on the wing. Now, he took a lot of faceoffs, but he spent most of the season on the wing. What's happened with Leon Draisaitl, I understand it. And I do. And let's talk about it. So he's number 8 center. He got votes for center for the first or second team All-Star votes, right? He was number 4 among left wingers in the voting and number 8 among right wingers. Leon Draisaitl split the season, and it wasn't really 50-50. He spent more time, I think, on the wing than he did in the middle. It felt like every week Edmonton was changing their mind about whether or not Draisaitl was going to be the second line center or they were going to put him on the wing with McDavid. So while there's a lot of writers being raked over the coals for having Draisaitl in different areas, so for Draisaitl, it means he had less votes at any one position, so he had a less of a chance of finishing top 2 and getting that first or second team All-Star nod. I don't think Draisaitl's really established himself at center. I think a lot of those points, and again, this is conjecture, would have come with McDavid. There's a lot of power play points in there. There's a lot of points when he's on the wing. So I understand why there might be somebody going, okay, I'm going to pencil him in as a right winger, and then the guy sitting next to him go, well, I qualify him as a center because. So a lot of guffaws, and this happens often. And of course, it was being pointed out as well that first team All-Star goaltender was Vasilevsky, and that wasn't close either. And then third team was Carey Price, who they were saying has never been a first or second team All-Star. And then you get into the first and second team All-Star situation that exists. And, you know, it does make a difference when it comes to Hall of Fame balloting, at least it seems to. Guys who finish with first or second team All-Star spots seem to get preference over ones that don't. But in the grand scheme of things, I think Draisaitl would take a look at this and say, you know what? We just want to make the playoffs next year. And then that'll probably just work itself out. So I understand why there's fans that were upset with the way the voting went. I only went with first place votes. Because if you get into all of the points and all the second, third, fourth place votes, it can muddy the waters a little bit. So I just wanted to talk about first place votes and point out the Selkie was really, really close. You could argue, and I personally, if I was voting for it, I would have voted for Mark Stone. I would have voted for Kucherov. I would have voted for Giordano. I would have voted for Pettersson, and Barkov would have made sense to me. So anybody might say, oh, I wish Shannon had a vote. I wouldn't have changed anything. Really wouldn't have. I would have given Stone an extra first place vote. It really wouldn't have changed anything. And I probably would have had Draisaitl as a winger. If I was picking guys for the first and second team All-Stars, I would have had Draisaitl on the wing. So there you go. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And I would have voted Binnington for Conn Smythe. That's just me. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you're just tapping upon this video. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.